They won't hit you. They'll dismiss you, smile past you, lower their voice when you speak. It's not violence, it's absence. The kind that makes your presence feel invisible, like you're not supposed to take up space, and it burns. Not because of what they do, but because of what rises in you when they do it. The instinct to explain, to prove, to fix yourself in the mirror of their gaze. You don't need to scream. You don't need to teach them respect. You need to stop bleeding into people who were never worthy of your fire. The Stoics never begged for dignity. They built walls around their energy. They didn't fight to be seen. They worked to become whole, whether or not anyone noticed. Because real strength is not how hard you hit, it's how quiet you get when they expect you to break. She was called too quiet, too strange, too intense. Her name was Luna. She didn't argue. She didn't cry in front of them. She just started getting better, quieter, sharpened in silence. They mocked her less, then started avoiding her, then started copying her. She never fought them. She just stopped needing them. That's what changed everything. Not her revenge, but her refusal to keep leaking worth into hands that dropped it. You don't need to fight. Just stop bleeding. Stop explaining to people who enjoy misunderstanding you. Stop staying in rooms where your silence is mocked, but your truth is never heard. Strength doesn't always rise. Sometimes it withdraws. Sometimes it disappears. Sometimes it says nothing, and that nothing echoes louder than any defense. They didn't beat you. They fed off the version of you that didn't know how to stop giving. Let that version go. Let the silence begin, and watch how the same people who once overlooked you now wonder why your absence feels heavier than your presence ever did. They expect you to flinch, to defend, to explain, to crack. But when you don't, something shifts. They lean in, they hesitate, they start wondering what's changed. Because stillness, real stillness, isn't weakness, it's signal. A quiet pulse that tells the room I'm not here to play. Most people are loud because they're unsettled. They fill the silence because it exposes them. But when you go still, you reveal nothing. You give them nothing. And that absence of reaction, it makes them nervous. The Stoics mastered this. They knew the world wants you to react, to jump, to rush, to spill your energy into things that don't deserve it. So they chose to withhold, to observe, to respond, only when necessary. They didn't argue, they didn't prove, they just moved different, spoke less, held ground like they didn't need to win because they'd already won. That's the power of stillness. It's not about being passive, it's about being unreadable. You don't owe anyone your urgency, your emotion, your availability. Let them talk, let them guess, let them reach. But stay centered, because when you don't react, they're forced to reflect, not on you, but on themselves. Stillness breaks patterns. It interrupts the game. It forces silence into people who only know how to manipulate noise. So next time they bait you, don't bite. Let the silence stretch. Let the discomfort rise. Let your stillness speak louder than anything you could say. Because stillness isn't absence, it's intent, it's command. It's the moment they realize you're no longer reachable through the same old tricks. You're no longer the version they once knew how to move. You're not frozen, you're focused. And that's when they start to tremble. You don't need to announce your rise. You don't need to post the grind. You don't need to tell them you'll see. Just build. In silence, in shadow, in stillness. Most people talk loud because they move small. They speak of plans they'll never touch. They seek reaction instead of results, but not you. You're not here for applause. You're here for transformation. The Stoics didn't brag, they built. They didn't declare they were changing. They just became different. Not overnight, not for attention, but in the quiet where no one clapped and everything counted. Because improvement is loudest when it's silent. You walk different, you breathe deeper, you say less because you no longer need to be understood, and they feel it. Let them laugh now, let them mock the pace, Let them say nothing's changing, but keep going, keep working, keep rising, because what grows underground eventually breaks through concrete. And when it does, it doesn't ask for space. It takes it. You don't need revenge, you don't need to prove. You just need to become so clear, so sharp, so undeniable, that they can't pretend you didn't level up while they were still watching shadows. Make no announcement, make no threat, make no speech, just disappear, then return unrecognizable. Let your new presence shake the room they once owned, because when you improve quietly, they hear it, in your walk, in your tone, in the way you look at them and no longer flinch. You don't need noise, you need proof, and proof doesn't ask for validation, it speaks without sound, and that sound is louder than any shout. Not everything deserves a goodbye. Not every place deserves closure. Not every person deserves a warning. Some things you just walk away from, cold, calm, clean, because the moment something makes you shrink, the moment your voice gets smaller, your step gets lighter, your truth starts folding to fit in, that's when you leave. Not loudly, not bitter, just done. The Stoics didn't wait to be pushed out. They walked before the damage became identity. They didn't fight to stay where they were no longer seen. They exited with silence and let their absence do the talking. You're not meant to fit everywhere. You're not meant to convince anyone. You're not meant to stay in spaces that teach you to doubt your worth. Walk away. From the table where respect is missing, from the conversation that only echoes itself, from the eyes that never really see you. You owe no one an explanation for protecting your peace, for choosing clarity over chaos, for refusing to bleed where you were never bandaged. Letting go isn't defeat, it's direction. It's knowing that your energy deserves air, not cages, that your mind needs room, not noise. They'll notice when you're gone. They'll feel the silence. They'll look around and realize the one they overlooked was the only one holding the room together. You don't need to slam the door. You don't need to make a scene. Just walk. Still, sharp, final, and let the echo of your leaving be louder than any explanation you could have given. Because when you walk away from what shrinks you, you don't become less, you become clear. And from that clarity, everything changes. Stop seeking applause. Stop explaining. Stop hoping they'll notice. They won't. Not until it's too late, not until they have no choice. Recognition is cheap, it can be given, taken, faked, forgotten. But value? Real value? That doesn't ask to be seen, it demands attention. By simply existing. The Stoics never chased praise, they chased excellence. They didn't ask to be appreciated. They became too disciplined to deny, too sharp to ignore, too whole to need validation. You don't need more eyes, you need more edge. You don't need to prove anything. You need to become what they can't look away from. Let them overlook you, let them misjudge you, let them think you've peaked. Then build. Quietly, relentlessly, without announcement. Make your presence so clear, so different, that when you step in, the air changes. Let your silence speak fluency, in focus, in distance, in refusal to be shaped by noise. They won't clap for you, they'll watch you, then mimic you, then fear that you no longer move at their level. And they're right, you don't. You've become too trained to be reactive, too clear to be moved by noise, too deep to ever need recognition from people who don't even see themselves. You want to shake the room? Don't ask for attention. Own your power. And let that power command what applause never could. Because recognition fades, but presence, real presence, is something the world has no choice but to adjust to. You don't need credit, you need consistency. You need fire that burns behind the eyes without ever begging for a spotlight. Become undeniable, and watch who comes back, pretending they always knew. Just nod and keep walking. Let them live with the echo of everything they missed. You didn't strike. You didn't scream. You didn't clap back. You just stood. And that's what made them tremble. Because most people aren't afraid of anger. They know how to fight noise, they know how to feed drama. What they can't handle is stillness, presence, unshaken, unbothered, unreachable. The Stoics didn't win by force, they won by endurance. They watched the chaos and chose stillness. They felt the insult and chose silence. They walked through fire and didn't flinch. That's what shook the world. Not their words, their composure, not their reaction, their refusal to react. So let them feel it. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the quiet where they used to find your weakness. Let them look into your eyes and see nothing but a wall they can't scale anymore. You're not the same. Not because you fought back, but because you outgrew the need to be understood. You don't chase closure, you become it. You don't demand respect, you embody it. And when they come back, and they always do, they'll see it. You no longer move at their level. You stood when it was easier to react. You held when it was easier to break. You said nothing when every part of you burned to speak. And that silence, that's what echoed. That's what hit. That's what made them tremble. Not because you attacked, but because you became something they could no longer touch. Let them tremble. Not because you fought, but because you never needed to. You didn't strike, you didn't scream, you didn't clap back, you just stood. And that's what made them tremble. Because most people aren't afraid of anger. They know how to fight noise, they know how to feed drama. What they can't handle is stillness, presence, unshaken, unbothered, unreachable. The Stoics didn't win by force, they won by endurance. They watched the chaos and chose stillness. They felt the insult and chose silence. They walked through fire and didn't flinch. That's what shook the world. Not their words, their composure. Not their reaction, their refusal to react. So let them feel it, let them wonder. Let them sit with the quiet where they used to find your weakness. Let them look into your eyes and see nothing but a wall they can't scale anymore. You're not the same, not because you fought back, but because you outgrew the need to be understood. You don't chase closure, you become it. You don't demand respect, you embody it. And when they come back, and they always do, they'll see it. You no longer move at their level. You stood when it was easier to react, you held. When it was easier to break, you said nothing. When every part of you burned to speak. And that silence, that's what echoed. That's what hit. That's what made them tremble. Not because you attacked, but because you became something they could no longer touch. Let them tremble. Not because you fought, but because you never needed to.